Hello, scholars. I just wanted to work the last 4 questions on today's review sheet for you guys, just so you have them all worked out, and if you have any questions on it or works, just understand that for the test, it's going to be very much like these last 2 review days, where at the beginning, you just have to identify the type of conic that you have, and then you go ahead and then you find its individual parts. Now, what's different is on today's homework assignment, I said, all right, for a circle, this is what you need to know. And the reason why I did that is I just wanted to reiterate before you took your test tomorrow, what were the key things for each shape. So let's imagine we're taking the test, and what you see here is the following there on number 6. It says, write the equation in standard form and then identify its key parts. It's what it's going to be. So you look at this, you have to identify it and go, oh yeah, that's a circle, and you'd write off circle off to the right on the test. And the reason why I know it's a circle is they both have the same coefficient and they are both the same sign, so it makes it really easy. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to group your x's and your y's together. So we got our 4x squared plus 32x, and then we get plus 4y squared minus 24y, and then you move the constant over to the other side, so that's negative 51. Then we start working completing the square. So remember, I need for completing the square 1 in front of your squared term, so I factor out of 4 out of my x's. So I get 4 times quantity x squared plus 8x, we're going to go plus blank. And then I do the same thing looking at the y. I have to have a 1 in front of the y squared, so I factor out a positive 4. So we get 4 times quantity, and then we got y squared minus 6y plus blank equals a negative 51, and we're going to go plus blank with those. All right, so now we complete the squares. So we take 8 divided by 2, which is 4, we square it, and we get 16. However, what we're going to add to the other side is, you got to remember, we have to multiply by the number out in front of my parentheses. So 4 times 16 is going to be 64. Now, let's do the same thing for our y's. So we look at negative 6, we divide by 2, we get negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. But I got to go 4 times 9, which is going to give us 36. So we simplify on the right side of our equation, and we get negative 51 plus 64 plus 36. That is going to give us a positive 49. And on the left, we start changing our trinomials into binomials being squared. So we get 4 times the quantity x plus 4 squared plus 4 times the quantity y minus 3 squared. Okay, now remember, we're writing this as standard form for a circle, which means we have to have no coefficients in front of the parentheses, so we have to divide everything by 4. So our standard form is x plus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared is equal to 49 over 4. All right, now that's our standard form for the circle, and then our center is going to be at negative 4, 3. Remember, it comes out the opposites, and our radius is the square root of 49 over 4, which is going to end up being 7 over 2, or if you want to, you could say 3.5, 3.5 while you're graphing it. So let's do our quick graph. We go over to negative 4. 3 is our center, and then remember, to graph a circle, you take the radius and you go to the right, left, up, and down that distance away from the center. So we go 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, and 3.5, and you just connect your points and you have your circle. All right. Next one says, write the equation of the parabola in standard form. Now, if you did not have that in the directions, it says just write the equation in the standard form of the conic. You need to understand, you knew it was a parabola because there's just one squared term, so it's x squared. So I need my x's on one side, I need my y and the constant on the other, while we're using this to change it to standard form. Well, I'm going to move, imagine putting the 0 here, and then I'm going to move the 8y and the 9 over to the left side. So I'm going to go 8y minus 9 is equal to x squared. Actually, we're going to leave a blank there. Plus blank is equal to x squared plus 10x plus blank. And then we're going to do the completing square on the right. So you take the 10, divide it by 2. And the reason why I don't have to factor anything out, my friends, is because x squared is 1 for the coefficient, so we don't have to do anything with it. So we just take 10 divided by 2 is 5, square it, we get 25. All right, so on the left, we get 8y minus 16 equals the quantity x plus 5 squared, because remember, we want that to be in standard parabola form. So now we just have to get y by itself. So we go 8y is equal to the quantity x plus 5 squared plus 16. Oops, this should be a plus 16 over here. I was going like, should be minus 16. I caught my error, guys. Once in a while, I can catch my errors. So that would be a minus 16. And then we divide every single term by 8. So that gives us y equals 1/8 times the quantity x plus 5 squared minus 2. So here is standard form. This is a parabola that is opening up because it's positive in front of it, and also because its x is inside the parentheses, so we know that. So what is going to be our vertex, which is one of the key pieces of information we need to pull out? That's going to be a -5, -2. So we go -5, -2 is your vertex. And we know it's opening up. So we have to solve for C, and that helps us find the focus and the directrix. Well, remember, 1 over 4C is equal to 1/8. So C is going to equal a positive 2. So you have to move up 2 to get the focus. So what is going to be our ordered pair for that focus, my friends? And that's going to be at -5, 0. All right. But then we have to go the opposite direction with C to get the directrix. And the directrix is going to be a line. And this time it is a horizontal line. So our directrix is y equals -4. Okay, so y equals -4. And notice a directrix is a line. So it has to be a y equals or an x equals. It just matters on it. Okay. Let's go to number 8 on this one. It says, write the standard form of the equation of ellipse. Now, how do we know by looking at that equation it's ellipse? Because they both have the same sign, but they have different coefficients. That's your signal that you have an ellipse. So let's group our x's together, our y's together, and move our constant to the other side. So we get here 4x squared plus 16x plus 25y squared minus 150y equals a -141. Okay, so let's look at our values for completing the square. Cannot have the 4 in front, so we factor out of 4. So we get here x squared plus 4x plus blank, and then we can factor out a 25 out of our y terms. So we get 25 times the quantity y squared minus, I don't know why it's doing that, minus 6y plus blank equals a -141 plus blank plus blank. Okay, so let's complete the square, my friends. So divide 4 by 2 and square it. So that is going to be 4. However, we got to remember to multiply by the value out front, which means we're adding 16 to both sides. And then we do the same thing with y. We take that -6 divided by 2, it's a -3, but squared, it's 9. So we're going to take our 25 and we're going to multiply by 9, and that's 225. And if we add those all together, my friends, on the right, that gives us 100. And then on the right, we're going to get our values. We're going to get 4 times quantity x plus 2 squared plus 25 times quantity y minus 3 squared. But remember, for an ellipse and a hyperbola, we have them equal to 0. So we divide by 100. And so when we do that, my friends, we get the following. We get x plus 2 squared all over 25 plus the quantity y minus 3 squared all over 4 is equal to 1. Now, what does this do? Well, this tells us that we have a parabola stretching horizontally. The reason why it's stretching horizontally is because a squared is always the larger of the two values in the denominator, and it's underneath the x, so it stretches the x direction of both ways. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to pull out the center, and the center is going to be at negative 2, 3. So I go negative 2, 3, and then we have to use a and b to graph it, but we also need to use that to solve for c. So what is a squared? Well, a squared is 25. So a we know is going to be a plus or minus 5, but it's moving horizontally. So we go 5 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one of your vertices, and then we go 5 to the left. Now, a, my friends, is always used to find, with hyperbolas and ellipses, it is always used to find your vertices. So our two vertices in this case are going to be at negative, did I count right? Oops, I didn't count far enough over on this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that should be a negative 7 instead. A negative 7, 3, and a positive 3, 3. All right. So now then, we also have to find c. So c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So we get 25 minus 4, which is the square root of 21. That also moves horizontally as well. So like the focus you could think of is going to be somewhere like over here and over here, something like that. So to get the foci, you just take the center and you add to its x value plus or minus the square root of 21, and we get left 3 here. So these are all the key components that we had to have, but to graph it, I actually have to know b. B squared was 4, so b is going to be plus or minus 2. So that allows us to go up 2 and down 2, so we have our co-vertices, so we can graph our ellipse with it. Okay. Last one, my friends. Yay! We're going to work with the hyperbola. The hyperbola is going to feel like an ellipse, except for you have a subtraction sign. So that's where things really change. And the reason why I know it's a hyperbola is if you look here, I have two squared terms. But notice one's positive, one's negative. So two different signs is the key that is going to be a hyperbola. Okay, so since we know it's a hyperbola, let's group stuff together that we have. We're going to go 9x squared minus 72x minus y squared plus 8y is equal to a negative 119. Okay, so my friends, we factor out a 9 first. We get 9 times quantity x squared minus 8x plus 0. Then we go minus 1 because y has to be positive for completing the square and it has a negative out. So take out a negative 1, and that's going to leave us y squared minus 8y plus blank equals a negative 119 plus blank plus blank. Actually, it's not letting me write what I want to there. All right. So now let's complete the squares for each one individually. Okay. So take a negative 8, divide it by 4. It's negative 4 squared is 16. Take the 9, multiply it to the 16. That's 144. Then we do the same thing with the y and we get 16 again, but here's the key part you need to remember. I am taking that negative 1 and I am multiplying it to that positive 16. So really, I'm going to a negative 16. And then if you add a negative 119 plus 144 plus negative 16, we're going to get a value of 9. And then we have, again, let's write the stuff on the left so it's into binomials being squared. So I get 9 times quantity x minus 4 squared minus the quantity y minus 4 squared. And then we divide everything by 9 because hyperbolas and ellipses are equal to 1. And so here I get an x minus 4 squared all over 1 minus the quantity y minus 4 squared. That should be a minus sign. All over 9 is equal to 1. So this is standard form from the hyperbola. This is a hyperbola that is opening to the left and the right because the x minus 4 squared is the one that's positive. So lets us know that we're opening left or right. So if we did this and the y minus 4 squared plus 9 was first, and then you were subtracting your x stuff, then it would have been opening up or down. So let's pull out the key information that you need. So we have to have our center. Well, that should be 4, 4. So I go over here to 4, 4 to get my center. But now my vertices are going to left and right. How do we find our vertices? A squared. And we know a squared is equal to 1. So we're going to go 1 to the right and 1 to the left because we're opening to the right and the left. So here would be a vertex and here would be your other vertex. So our vertices are going to be at 5, 4 and going to be at 3, 4 are the two ordered pairs. And notice I'm writing with ordered pairs. You must have your parentheses. Okay, so the cool thing is we've got our stuff that you have to know and identify, but we need to be able to graph it. Well, that's where b comes along. B squared in this case is 9, so b is going to be a plus or minus 3. And with b, we go up 3 and we go down 3 from the vertex. So the opposite, basically, direction. I wouldn't say opposite direction. The perpendicular direction for what you did to get your vertices. And then you carefully, and I need you guys to hear me on this, draw the box so it goes through your points that we did. And then you draw in your asymptotes through the center and through the corners of your box. And here's the deal. I need you guys to hear me this. You must accurately draw this box, okay? Because it's not hard to draw. And then you draw in your hyperbola. It must, I want to do a different color here. Let's go blue. It must touch the vertex and then go alongside of your asymptotes. And this would be your basic graph of that hyperbola. All right, guys, I hope that helps a little bit and that you're able to work with it. Remember, you can call me if you have questions. You guys did a great job.